What's up guys, Versatile Element here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Spoiler-free review. I was able to watch the movie last night with my family and we left past midnight by the time we ended the movie. Me, my family, along with other movie theater visitors. And again, spoiler-free review for Rise of Skywalker. And before we do so, I have a few things to announce first. One, before we start the spoiler-free review, I'm going to talk about a whole retrospective on Disney-era Star Wars from 2012 to this year. So if you want to skip to the Rise of Skywalker spoiler-free review, here's a time code on screen for you to skip for your convenience. Second of all, another thing that has discouraged me from making any kind of reviews, whether it's movie, TV show, video games, and so on, is that what if I, in my reviews, talk about a lot of talking points and analyses, observations that other people have made in their reviews, that for myself I've never noticed or thought about too much about whatever I'm reviewing, movie, TV show, video games, and so on. Not that I would be plagiarizing the reviews from other people's reviews, but it's just, are the talking points I make in my reviews really coming from me, or is it from what other people have said in the past? So I just wanted to add that in because I'll be talking about some of those things in my review for Rise of Skywalker. Now, on to the retrospective first, then Rise of Skywalker spoiler review. I'm gonna have to skip the books/comic books part of this retrospective because unfortunately I don't really read a lot of books, whether they're Star Wars or whatever. But I had to say, I did recently get Hello Greedo's book, and we can see it right here. Sorry about the mess. I haven't read this book yet, but I do look forward to seeing the book, to reading the book, excuse me. So there's that. Plus, I've also heard of some general good things about some Star Wars books written by somebody called Claudia Gray, I believe. So other than all of that, I have to skip the books part of this retrospective. Now, this is where the retrospective really comes into play on the video games. So in 2012, when Disney bought the Star Wars and Lucasfilm from George Lucas, they also had a lot of changes in the video game parts. LucasArts, the former game developer, publisher, and licensor for Star Wars video games, as well as other video games they've made and published before, they've been shut down ever since and only exist as a licensor for Star Wars games. And where did all of those Star Wars games go to? EA. They've had about a 10-year exclusivity deal with Disney, which is still going on, and this is all besides Lego Star Wars games that may, I believe, still be made by Traveller Tales, such as Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens in 2016. But other than that, EA has gotten the exclusive license to Star Wars games for now, which, why EA of all people did Disney have to go to for this exclusivity deal? But we got what we got anyways. There was also going to be a video game, a third-person shooter game, which was basically Star Wars meets Uncharted. Star Wars 1313, which was going to take place around Boba Fett and one other bounty hunter, I believe. I think it is Boba Fett and another bounty hunter, thinking from the top of my head. They were going to explore an underworld in Coruscant, but then that game was canceled, put on hold indefinitely, pretty much canceled by now. It was going to have one of the people behind Uncharted. I believe her name is Amy Hennig, unless I'm thinking of another Star Wars project that she was going to take part of. There's also Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, a mobile game by EA and another developer that they own. But then I'm not that much into mobile games. I mean, I do play a little bit of them, but not as much as console or PC, so I really can't comment on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Now, 2015 is when Star Wars video games under Disney's ownership and EA's exclusive development / publishing was really going forward. 2015 saw the release in November of the Star Wars Battlefront reboot, which overall to me it is okay or just good, but could have been so much more. I mean, it was rushed to meet the release for Star Wars The Force Awakens and had a lot of limited single player content, and most of the content being over in multiplayer and just original trilogy, not even prequel trilogy, just original trilogy. And pretty much nowadays, Star Wars Battlefront 2015 has just been dumped by EA, besides keeping the servers up and besides adding Rogue One into the mix in 2016. Then 2 years later came Star Wars Battlefront 2, again the reboot of Star Wars Battlefront 2, the classic one, and this was like a huge mess for EA and Disney era Star Wars for video games because of the whole microtransactions and pay to win, putting Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and any other iconic Star Wars characters behind a paywall. And I believe it was either on Reddit or Steam that the justification for the grindiness of Battlefront 2 early on was just the most dumbed down comment. There was also going to be an open world Star Wars game by Visceral, another company owned by EA, but then that project was canceled, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe that was the Star Wars project that I was thinking of with one of the Uncharted writers, or maybe it was Star Wars 1313, but I can't think correctly from the top of my head. But hey, Star Wars Battlefront 2 really turned around in the 2 years since the November 2017 launch. It's just been so much changes been made. The whole pay-to-win loot boxes and stuff have been removed. All the DLCs are free and really come into the game's periodic updates. And speaking of updates, a lot of content has been added to Battlefront 2, especially from the Clone Wars era. From Obi-Wan Kenobi, General Grievous, Geonosis, Commando Droids, Droidicas, Anakin Skywalker, Capital Supremacy, Galactic Assault, and so on. And of course the Rise of Skywalker later on, but we get to that in a second. Star Wars The Last Jedi the content was released at that time as well with the beginning of the video game, as well as solo Star Wars story content in early 2018, up to, as far as I already mentioned this, the Rise of Skywalker content, which was released recently, as well as the September 2019 update, which was one of the most heavily anticipated updates, bringing in clone commandos and Felucia, as well as instant action into single player, finally. So overall, Battlefront 2 now is a lot better game than it was launched, which I was thinking, why wasn't this the version of Battlefront 2 that we got in 2017? EA, greedy company, like always, and like many companies. Then comes 2019. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was promoted at Star Wars Celebration earlier this year in April, as well as, if I'm not mistaken, the upcoming Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, which I think will be released sometime in 2020. I might be mistaken. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order takes place between Episode 3 and Episode 4, and it's overall been a great game. Although I've seen a lot of bugs and glitches that other people have gotten in the past month that the game has been released. I've played the game. I've started streaming it a little bit, but I will get into future streams of the story later on. But now let's move on from video games to the TV shows. As far as Star Wars TV shows go under Disney, Star Wars: The Clone Wars was previously aired on Cartoon Network was canceled following Disney's acquisition of the franchise, and was also replaced by Star Wars Rebels soon afterwards. Any of the unfinished episodes that weren't released have been made available on the Star Wars website, as well as the finished episodes from Season 6 that were never released on Cartoon Network have been made available on Netflix as the Lost Levels, or the Lost Episodes, I believe. Lost Chapters, Lost Episodes. Overall, overall, Star Wars Rebels, I didn't really get into Star Wars Rebels that much, and only got interested in Star Wars Rebels when it came to the return of Ahsoka Tano, cloned Captain Rex, Commander Gregor, and well, not Commander Gregor, Commander Wolf and Captain Gregor, as well as wrapping up Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan Kenobi, or rather Ben Kenobi. But maybe I'll get into Star Wars Rebels sometime in the future because of Disney Plus. There was also plans for a live-action Star Wars TV show called Star Wars Underworlds, which was also canceled around this time as well, around 2013, near the beginning of this past decade. There's also Star Wars Resistance, which is much more child-friendly or geared towards children with a very bright colors and very stylized art style, which I don't know if I'll ever get to Star Wars Resistance. Maybe it's a better TV show than I think it is, but as of right now, I have not watched Resistance. And going back to Clone Wars, you can't keep a good TV show down for too long, because in July of 2018 from San Diego Comic-Con, Star Wars The Clone Wars had a surprise announcement for Season 7 to wrap up the series, to give it a proper ending. A story left finished until now, which Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7 was also promoted at Star Wars Celebration in 2019 in Chicago, and set to be released on Disney Plus for sometime next year, I think around February. But anyways, 2019 was when TV shows for Star Wars have been going on so much. November of 2019 came the release of Disney Plus, Disney's own streaming service, to compete with Netflix and Hulu and all of that. Even before, Disney has started to remove a lot of their properties out of Netflix, and I don't know about Hulu, but at least with Netflix, even though there are some leftover Disney content on Netflix still, like Star Wars The Last Jedi and Avengers Infinity War. November was also a turning point for Star Wars TV shows because of Star Wars The Mandalorian, which was also promoted at Star Wars Celebration in April. And Star Wars The Mandalorian has been the biggest TV show out right now, with like all Baby Yoda and such. Baby Yoda memes, this is the way I have spoken, this is the way I have spoken, and so on. And we're expected to be coming into The Mandalorian season finale sometime soon, perhaps later this week. Which Star Wars The Mandalorian usually gets one video every Friday, but then the launch week, let's say video, I mean episode, but the launch week had 2 episodes because the first one was released on a Tuesday. And for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker last week, the latest episode to The Mandalorian was moved to Wednesday rather than Friday, most likely because of Rise of Skywalker releasing that same day. Now we move on to the sequel trilogy and the anthology movies. Star Wars The Force Awakens was released first in December of 2015. This is the start of the yearly Star Wars movies, and Star Wars The Force Awakens explored new characters, or at least introduced new characters, Rey, Finn, Poe, BB-8, and also tied into finding Luke Skywalker as he's gone missing, which a lot of people liked it at first, but then started hating it a year later because, oh, it was just this cheap rehash for A New Hope, which I believe J.J. Abrams made that intentional to ease people into Star Wars again, because it's the first Star Wars movie in 10 years since Revenge of the Sith, and 7 years since the Clone Wars animated movie, which people kept on forgetting about the Clone Wars animated movie like it never existed. Then we move on to Rogue One in 2016, the first of the Star Wars anthology movies, which takes place explaining, okay, how the Death Star plans were stolen by the rebels right before A New Hope begins. So it just ties into episode 4. Personally, I do love Rogue One, but maybe this movie felt more like filler for a lot of people. I wouldn't be surprised, because that's the format for the yearly Star Wars movie so far. Main series from the sequel trilogy, then anthology, main series, anthology, and so on. Then a turning point in Star Wars movies was Star Wars The Last Jedi, which was very divisive among fans. Some fans like it, and a lot of fans trashed the movie. Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy, and all. Subverted expectations, or just or just subverted expectations for no reason. It was supposed to be different, but then it went too far to another direction. So just, even though critics love the movie, fans have been split on Last Jedi for the past 2 years. A lot of vocal fans too, and I just happen to be one of the people who doesn't hate The Last Jedi or trash it. I'm one of those who do like the movie, and even if I didn't like Last Jedi, I wouldn't trash it so toxically like so many fans. But at the same time, there's people being called, like the Star Wars Last Jedi fans being called toxically positive. So who knows, like, am I toxically positive, or is it just toxicity being negative? But anyways, that's all besides the point. Then comes Solo, a Star Wars story, so far the last of the anthology movies, which was released very early compared to The Last Jedi. Usually the Star Wars movies were released around a year apart from each other, but Solo was released in May of 2018 rather than December. And even though Star Wars fans may like the Solo movie and even calling for a Solo 2, the movie still bombed in the theaters, still flopped in the theaters, because a lot of Star Wars fans boycotted Solo because of The Last Jedi, and any other movies that would come out after episode 9 and in the future were either canceled, put on hold indefinitely, or turned into TV shows, like what I believe will happen with the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, turn it into a possible TV show in the future. Now, if you haven't skipped to this part, we finally get into Rise of Skywalker review. And man, this was a lot to take in over Rise of Skywalker. Just a lot to take in, especially from the beginning that carried out throughout the rest of the movie. So at the beginning, it really starts off with Kylo Ren fighting what I think are resistance of soldiers. I'm not too sure. I thought I saw a Jawa somewhere in the background, but maybe I'm mistaken. Kylo Ren also happens to be searching for his objective, some Sith treasure, a Sith relic to bring over to some Sith world, which I don't remember its name. And just this whole bit with Kylo's own mission just reminds me about a video that Star Wars Theory on YouTube made if he wrote Star Wars The Last Jedi, which it really does remind me of that video, and I may have to watch Star Wars Theory's video on that again. I don't remember if he ever finished that series, but I may have to watch that video again just for a refresh. But yeah, Kylo Ren at the beginning just reminds me of Star Wars Theory's video on if he wrote Star Wars The Last Jedi. And already there's also a lot of horror type of atmosphere at the beginning of the movie. Emperor Palpatine does return, but how has it been made clear, at least for what I understand? Now, maybe there was a cue in the background that does hint to how he returned, but it still hasn't been made clear from what I could tell. And if I've also read somewhere on Twitter or some article that Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker has like writing that almost seems like a fan fiction, which I do get some of that, especially when it comes to Palpatine and later on C-3PO, which I won't talk about the C-3PO part, but Palpatine's bit and the whole imagery on that Sith world and above it does remind me of like something you would see out of a fan fiction. And the fan service has been strong in this movie, even at the beginning already, and you'll see, if you watch The Rise of Skywalker, you'll see a lot of fan service to other movies, lines, the movement of the characters, and so on. There's been many other revelations that happened in this movie, a lot of revelations and developments, such as with Luke and Leia, and I just been mixed on over those revelations because I'm not sure if they were the right ones to make or if they were executed correctly. So you have to watch the movie for yourself if you want to know what the revolutions I'm talking about. I just overall been mixed on them, just not sure what to think about those revelations. Now, I keep on forgetting about Billy D. Williams' return to the Star Wars movies. So when I saw Lando, when Lando finally makes his appearance, it literally put a smile to my face. Like, here's Billy Williams. Oh, it's Lando. I don't think it looks that good on the camera, but that's all I can describe it. Seeing Billy Williams in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, puts a smile on my face. Now, the pacing of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which I forgot to mention for the beginning, it's just been like a fast pace at first, going from scene to scene to scene, dialogue to dialogue to dialogue, just so many people talking one after the other, and again, jumping from scene to scene. It's like, oh, just slow down a bit, okay? Slow down. I could still follow through the story, but it's just so much to take in, just so much things to address and wrap up so much in one movie and at one time. And by around the middle of the movie, that's when I felt that the pacing slowed down, dragged on through the rest of the story. And as if J.J. Abrams knew that people could possibly be losing to the story, you know, that the story could be losing them because of how fast things went and how slow that the rest of the movie turned out, that's when the final battle near the end, the climax, really got Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker going. I mean, it's just a lot of emotions around in the movies, even before the final battle against like Palpatine and the First Order. Hope I'm not giving any even minor spoilers, but the last part of the movie with the final battle and towards the end was the best part of the movie, I believe, that really brought Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker up more. Now, if the Star Wars sequel trilogy is supposed to be about Rey because she is the female lead, then like this whole trilogy looking back seems to be more about a character arc on Kylo more than Rey. After all things have been said and done, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker does fix a lot of problems and answer a lot of questions that were made in The Last Jedi and in Force Awakens, such as why Rey is so powerful with the Force even though she didn't have like a lot of training even from Luke. But at the same time, there's been a bunch of questions that were brought up, such as like Emperor Palpatine does return, but how did he return? Again, like I mentioned before, how did he return? And he has like a whole cult of followers, of Sith followers. Who are those followers of Palpatine? And his motivation around Rey and around the story in the sequel trilogy has just been like a little inconsistent. I'm not going to talk about that part, but yes, that like Emperor Palpatine, first he wanted this to happen, and then now he wants another thing to happen. Yes, just a lot of things to take in. What do I think about all of this? What do you think about all of this stuff? And also near the end, for you Reylo fans out there, be prepared to be excited and quickly disappointed. And there was also some clever imagery used with Rey and BB-8 right before the movie ends, which maybe it was not intentional, but I think it is. So if you do watch Rise of Skywalker, let me know what you think of that, about that imagery at the end. I believe it's really clever with Rey and BB-8. Overall, it's just a lot of things to take in for the Rise of Skywalker, but I think it's a good ending to the sequel trilogy. It just could have been done better. It could have been executed better pacing, and like addressing so many things earlier on in the story or the trilogy, rather than trying to wrap things up all at once in one movie. But then, like, where are you gonna go from here, you know? Even though future Star Wars movies may or may not be in a trilogy format and may move on from the Skywalker story, where's Disney going to take the story of Star Wars from now? You know, because like there's always going to be something else. That's like, if you thought the original trilogy could have been it, there was the sequel trilogy afterwards. I hope that like this trilogy will just be left alone now. Leave BB-8 and Finn and Poe's story around. Leave it all for now in the sequel trilogy and just move on with new characters somehow. Don't have to like bring back another old enemy that you thought was dead but isn't. So it's just a lot of questions now of where the Star Wars is going to go movie-wise after the sequel trilogy, which is we're going to have more answers in the years to come, as well as new Star Wars movies starting in about 3 years now. So that has been my review for my spoiler-free review for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, as well as my pretty long, I guess, retrospective of Disney era Star Wars from 2012 to now. What do you guys think of Disney era Star Wars, as well as Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker? Do you think you're gonna watch the movie, or are you just on the sidelines, or not watching it at all because of The Last Jedi and Disney as a whole, Kathleen Kennedy and such? Anyways, guys, that's all I got for now. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'd definitely recommend watching Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Just could have been a better told finale to the trilogy, but still good by itself. I was really worried when all the mixed reactions came into Rise of Skywalker, but I think it's a better movie than what the critics give it credit for, or if anything. So now let me know, guys, what you think about the movie. Versatile Element signing out, and I'll see you in the next one.